What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to, I believe, episode 8 of 6 tips at approximately 6 on Sundays. We seem to fluctuate the time, but we actually settled on 6 Eastern this week, so we're glad to be touching it on that. If you're new to my channel, I am a part-time eBay seller and a full-time corporate finance analyst. And I'll toss it over to Chris for a quick intro, let you know who he is and what he does.
What's up, guys? My name is Chris. I have a YouTube channel called 10Konthebay where I'm trying to reach 10,000 live listings on eBay. Luke and I have been having the show for about 2 months now, and it's been awesome sharing 3 ideas each on how we can improve our eBay business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a lot of fun. I've learned a ton throughout it. I think other people are learning some good information. Today is a cool topic. We're talking about 3 tips on how to avoid returns and negative feedback and how to prevent it, how to be proactive in your business and avoiding it. I think this is a topic that everyone cares tremendously about. I know I do. I actually got my first negative feedback this last week, the first time in like a year. So it couldn't have come at a better time to start talking about this. So Chris, do you want to kick it off and give your first tip? We'll jump in. True to format, before Chris starts, we do all Q&A at the end. We will leave a significant chunk of time at the end. So just save your questions until then, and we will get to them. So why don't you jump right in, Chris?
Awesome. Glad to kick it off. So the first thing that I do is I sell a lot of pre-owned things, so electronics, clothing, etc. And I try to take pictures from multiple angles to give the customer as much of an idea of what color the item actually is. So as an example, I've had a return on an item that was more pink than salmon normally is from a customer, and I had to accept the return. eBay sided with them. So what I'm going to try to do on a color like salmon, which can be pink in some color in some pictures, orange in some pictures, is take a bunch of pictures, and I'm going to leave the item color as custom. I'm going to put reddish salmon instead of putting salmon or pink or red in the item specifics. I'm going to make my own that I think is the closest and put in both the condition description and the item description the color I think it is and which picture looks most like it actually does in person. And that's only really going to happen on colors like salmon for me. I can't get the pink. It looks different in close-ups as it does far away. So that's tough for me, but I'm trying to reduce returns and for color. That's my first tip for reducing returns.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. Great. So question for you, on average, so how many issues have you had with that? I mean, since you started basically in January, kind of hitting it really hard with eBay. How many have you had? How many issues have you had with color and things like that?
I have had less than 10 returns because of color. Mm-hmm. But all 10 of them were from it not being the color the listing said.
Exact color, yeah. Yeah.
So all of them.
A lot of, and I have to say the same. I mean, I'm probably around that range, 10 to 20 I've had over color discrepancies. And it's always when I've been too specific. So the more specific I am, my keywords trying to like nail the color exactly, it always ends up biting me in the butt. And they're like, this isn't what I think slate blue is, right? Like, and so just to kind of add on to what Chris said, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was just be as general as possible. Like if it's purple, just say purple. Like don't debate the shade. If it's blue, say blue. Don't debate the shade because let them determine what they want it to be, what they think it is. And especially the other kind of reason with that is, I mean, I know personally I'm like slightly colorblind, which is a little bit of an issue. Not terrible. My dad is really bad. But like I can't imagine trying to tell the difference that way, and that's why just sticking to those like palette-based, like very basic colors, I think will steer you the right way and reducing that issue for sure.
And on that same, actually no, that's my different point. So go ahead with your first point.
That's fair. So my first one, and this is something I didn't start really utilizing until probably I'd say the middle of last year, and I wish I had way sooner, is utilize the condition box, so the actual condition description field, and it displays right underneath the title of the item. Use that to display all flaws, alterations, anything odd about the item, and put it right there in the top, like first line. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't put, make sure that that's the first thing they see. Because if you can get it in the front of their eyes, it's a really good chance they're not going to gloss over it, right? A. And two, well, B, A and B. B is that if you do have an issue and you talk to eBay, that's one of the first things you can point to is, hey, I put this right here. I was as far from deceptive as possible. Like, it's right here. And that's going to eliminate it so often for you. And one thing that I started doing very recently as well is even when like your inseam, like I'm going to talk about pants, like say the inseam's altered by an inch. And even if there's not an inseam tag measurement or anything, and you put 31 inches, put that the inseam was altered, right? If you notice it was altered, put it right there in that condition description, because that's another one I've had where like I put the true size, there was no tag size, it just was like a size 32. It was a 32 by 31 is what it measured. I put 32 by 31. They get the jeans, they say, well, this wasn't originally a 32-31. And so it doesn't fit the same as if it was a 32-31. And so I've been starting to put, if I think it was altered, I put right in the description, condition description, it's altered. You know, inseam was altered to 31 inches. You know, fraying on the cuffs, see pictures. You know, fading on the pocket, see pictures. Right there at the top, so there's no mistaking. That's made a huge difference for me.
On that same note, not all of my listings have this, but on most of my listings, it explains how I measure. So for example, not everyone measures inseam the same way. Not everybody measures a lot of things the same way. And two common things that are measured differently are inseam and then sleeve length are measured differently. Some people measure it to the shoulder and then down. Some people directly to the thing. And so you need, if you explain how you measure it in the description, that's prevented 2 returns from me where someone said, I measure it differently, but in my description, it explains how I measure it. So yeah, they have to adhere to that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I second that a lot, because especially even like suit jackets and things like that, it's important that they know how you're measuring it. You know, that they know you're laying the garment flat when you do it, or they know, like, all those things, those nuances matter to, especially the more custom an item or the more high-end an item, the more that the buyer is really going to care about that. So yeah, I agree.
Am I going to my next tip?
Yeah, I think
Please.
so.
So my next tip is actually, when we're talking about as generic as possible as far as describing a color, I wore this shirt for this specific reason. Like, this is a Sonic shirt and it has Sonic the Hedgehog on it. And I'm going to list this, even though the shirt is gray, I'm going to list it as multicolor, because I get people who say it's not really gray because it has a graphic on it. And instead of dealing with that, I just put multicolor. And also I'll put in the description, I'll put graphic tee or something in the title to let people know, or I'll use the pattern in the title instead of the color sometimes. I'll use striped shirt instead of blue striped shirt. And it's kind of fuzzy. I just wanted to also make one more point with Luke's last point. I'll actually put the defect in the title. And I've noticed a lot of people say that, like altered or torn or stained. They'll put that in the title and the condition description, and they'll have their finger pointing to it in one of the pictures. They're doing everything to make it as obvious as they can to the customer that there's something going on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I also have to point out, so this is how unrehearsed the show is, guys. So I took Chris's second tip in the first tip, and I just realized it now, because we basically just, like, 2 minutes for the show, right off what we're going to say and go. So props to Chris, because he just came up with like 3 extra things that I thought were very actionable and great on the spot, just showing how knowledgeable he is. So, but yeah, I love the multicolor tip, especially when you don't want to waste keywords on colors trying to describe every single color. I also think that can be an issue in the title. Is I'll always struggle. I'm trying to, like, say red and blue plaid, or, you know, red, blue, and green, and it's like sometimes having 3 colors in the title is really tough, and it takes away from other really important keywords. So you're just utilizing that multicolor, or just saying bright plaid, or saying, you know, something along those lines, I think goes a long way. So that was a great point.
And I also want to mention, Luke and I have been debating and discussing conversion. So if you put red, green, blue in the title, and someone's looking for red or green or blue, and they get a shirt that's all 3, that may not be what they're looking for. And then your listing may not be searchable because no one's buying it. But if you just put plaid and that's it, then later maybe somebody down the road will be like, oh, they are looking for plaid. That's not a specific type of plaid. And that's a conversation that we keep having. Does it boost your ranking because you have 3 colors, or does it hurt you?
Right. Well, and that's the topic of conversion versus ranking, right? Is being at the top of the ranking is great, but if you're getting people attracted to your listing who aren't looking for it, it doesn't help you at all. It just gets you lots of views with no one pulling the trigger. So yeah, it's an interesting debate. We could spend a whole show on that. Maybe that'll be a show topic here in the near future. But yeah, I agree. So I guess it's my turn, huh? So my second one is when selling new tags items, I think a lot of people overlook this. Make sure you remeasure all of the stated measurements on the item. And the specific ones I run into all the time, nonstop, are with new tags dress pants. I'll find all the time, I'll get like Dockers or Periolis, just, whatever, mall brand type stuff I'll find. And it'll be like a 32-30. And guess what? It was mismanufactured, right? It was a defect. And it's 32-34. Or it's 32-28 really, but the tag says 32-30, so it was a misprint on the tag. That happens more times than not, especially the ones you find in the thrift stores. That's how they end up there, is they end up as defects or shelf pulls or whatever they are for issues, and then they end up there. And I've been bit by it twice. The first time I legitimately didn't measure. The second time I thought I measured, but I don't know. It was something a little funny. I don't know if the person let out the pants or what, but in either case, I had 2 returns based off of the fact that the measurements didn't match the tag description, like by a lot. I mean, it's a significant amount. The one was a 32-30, I think, and it was like a 26 inseam because it was so short. I should have noticed that anyways, but like that's just, really, when you're finding new tag stuff out in the wild, make sure you're checking the measurements, especially in with shirts. You kind of got to do the pit-to-pit measurement and give it a go of like, hey, does this make sense as a medium or as a large? Because a lot of times the same thing happens. Wrong tags adhere to it small, it has a large tag or whatever.
And this is also common. If you're buying factory seconds or you're going to the outlet, a lot of these are rejects from the actual retail stores. So if you get them and it'll have an X mark sometimes even on the tag saying that this is wrong. Like this is why it's so cheap here because we screwed up on it. And you need to also indicate that if it's a factory second, let people know there's a black dot on it from this is probably a store return or a factory second. And then I put both the actual measurement and the listed measurement in the title. And I'm thinking about not doing that and only listing the actual measurement the way I measure, because I'm worried now about the search ranking of people pulling up the listed size and it doesn't fit. So what's the point of even searching for that? But what do you think, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I've shifted all towards, I only put the measure for pants. I'm going to stick with pants right now for this example. I only put the actual measured size in the description and the title anymore. For especially on men's pants. So like a 34-30, that's what, if I measure 34-30, that's what goes in. If the tag size is 34-32, I put in the title 34-30 because it was what it was measured. I put in the item specifics, the drop downs, 34-30, what I actually measured. And then in the description in the bottom, I'll say tag size 34-32, but altered to whatever. And then I put in the condition description, inseam altered to 30, because I don't want any buyer searching on those terms and coming back with the wrong inseam that they're looking for just because my tag said it. So I think that's something to be very careful of, especially with pants. Shirts is a little more difficult because it's just kind of like it's a large or it's a medium. But if you knew for sure that something was a medium, I would probably put medium in the title and I would put, garment shrunk in the description or something like that and say, really a large or mislabeled tag or whatever. I've also just to add to, I've seen samples, Chris. I've come across new tag stuff that were samples. That's another thing to be on the lookout for is a lot of times they'll put on the inside of the garment a sample like stamp. I've actually found a Tommy Bahama one not too long ago. You can still sell them. You just got to let people know that they're samples and that tag is in there.
What information do you put in the description other than what's in the title?
So I usually put my level of quality. So like I use excellent, used, or fair. Those are the 3 tiers I use to describe a used garment. Or I'll put, if it's new with tags, I literally will type out new with tags. Again, just write in the condition description just to let them know. But pretty much it's like excellent used condition, inseam alter to 30 inches, see picture, or wear on cuffs, see picture, things like that. And I just put it right there. Usually wear on cuffs, wear on a certain spot or a stain on a spot is what I highlight in bold, in that condition description. That's not in the title.
And is that condition description going to be copied and pasted in the item description, or what else is different?
Yeah, so I use a template that actually also has that below in the item description at the bottom. So actually mirror any flaws are listed multiple places. So description and condition description, like box. And when I say, just to like separate, you have a description for the overall listing that like you can put a template in, and then you have condition description, which is a box below the title. So those are two different areas. I just make sure they mirror each other when I'm talking about the condition of an item, that they say the same thing.
Okay. I was going to ask you one more question. I have seen on a lot of listings now a picture that has the description on it. So for example, somebody will have excellent, fair, or good, or damaged. They'll have a picture with those four, and then one of those will be checked off. So somebody's actually thinking the buyer is not even going to read anything. They're going to look at the pictures and make a decision on buying. There's literally a conditioned picture. And I'm curious because they are now adding one more picture, which in theory improves your search. And also they are double entering something in, because we know when we double enter stuff, less mistakes happen. So that's an interesting thing I've seen recently.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't frown upon it if you have capacity to add that into your your workflow. I mean, adding additional detail to make it crystal clear to the buyer what they're getting is always going to be a benefit to you as a seller. But that's kind of where I'm always like, err on the side of more. Like if you're thinking about leaving something off, just add it in. Like if you've already got to the point where you're thinking about not putting it in, you probably should just do it. Just put it in. Take the extra few seconds. Yeah, avoid the return, avoid the negative experience, the negative feedback, whatever comes from it. So yeah, I mean, to me, it comes down to process and workflow. Something like that is, am I, and this sounds terrible, but it also gets back to, am I avoiding one return out of 1,000 sales by doing it, but stunting 100 additional sales because I'm not listing as much because I'm adding the picture? I mean, those are all the things you have to consider when you do something like that. But again, we've talked about that in other shows. You know, if you're trying to maximize and avoid returns, adding something like that is going to help, no doubt about it.
There's one more thing that I'm just going to point out really quick from the chat, which is some people use an arrow or a pencil or a pen or their finger to indicate a defect. I think that's fantastic because it's so obtrusive in the picture. Like if you don't see that, like I saw a person with a Barbie doll that was pointing at the specific thing, and there's no way to miss that picture if you see the picture.
Yeah, and that's true. Yeah, you want to make it as obvious. I mean, I also would be careful with what you're pointing at too, sure. And making sure that it's crystal clear it's pointing at. But yeah, I'll use a pen occasionally if it's a flaw I want the small one to see. But I just want to give a shout out to Wade real quick. Wade just gave a $10 super chat. Really appreciate that. He's been supporting a lot of us resellers out here. He just started his own YouTube channel recently. Definitely encourage people to check it out if you haven't yet. He's got some great content. So appreciate the support, Wade. Appreciate the support of the community.
We also had a $10 super chat from Atripa645. So thank you very much. And
thank you for that.
Let us know if we can shout you out or if you have a specific question also. One more question on this topic. What do you use to hold down the tag? And do you take a picture of the tag?
Oh, that's a great question. So I use tape bubble. And I basically just like take a little piece of like Scotch tape or something, put it under the tag and put the tag flat so that it holds flat. Snap my picture, pull it off. I usually keep it like I have a stool that I take my last picture on with the tag, and I just keep the little tape bubble on like my light stand above it. So I just grab it real fast, put it on, boom, put it back up and go. Just because I hate the wrinkled tag look, I feel like I need to have it flat. Otherwise it, you know, I don't know. That's just I'm a little OCD about that. How about you? What do you do?
I use a pen. So there's a pen in the picture. So it definitely looks homemade, but I think they can see the extra effort I took to let them see the tag because it's always curled.
Right. Oh, it's, yeah, almost always.
So, you know, I think, and then, you know, one more thought on that other thing is that when you start to look at the bigger sellers, the majority of them just take 2 pictures, front and back. And you know that makes their their returns definitely higher. There's no question that less pictures will make your returns go up.
Yeah, I agree.
But they've done the math for their model that might be worth it, right? So you'll see so many different models out there.
I also think too, we've talked about this before. It's like the price point you're selling at also determines the time you spend on the listing. Like
That's a good point.
Firmly believe that, right? You're flipping a 50 cent to $10, right? 100, or 1,000 times in a month. 2 pictures is all you're going to do because you're doing pure volume. If you're doing, $5 into $100, you're going to spend a lot more time on that listing because that buyer's going to be very careful between pulling the trigger with $100. So that's just, there's a different scale there. We could spend a whole other show on that too.
That's true, and then that also determines your return rate, guys, depending on the price of your item. If you're going to sell expensive stuff, then you need to provide a premium experience. It's a different category. So am I going to my third?
It's your turn, man.
All right. So my third is I have a 20% restocking fee, and I think that has reduced my returns, with the caveat that it's definitely also reduced my sales. Some people will look at that and say, no, I'm not going to buy it. There's a restocking fee. And some people will say, ideally, I'm not going to buy this item and return it because there's a 20% restocking fee. Now, in my description, I put, we'll waive it if you return the item within 7 days of receiving it. And I do that so that if I'm going to get a return, they're not going to use the whole 60 days that I offer as a return policy. I'd want them to return it right away. I'm trying to encourage them to do that. What do you think, Luke?
So this is where Chris and I our models differ tremendously in this approach. So I'm the complete opposite. I'm 60-day returns, no question asked. I hit accept on pretty much 99.9% of any return that comes to me. But every point Chris has made is super valid, right? He's trying to prevent the return on the front end. He's trying to prevent it before the purchase even happens. And so his restocking fee policy is discouraging a buyer who's like, yeah, I kind of like it, kind of don't, whatever. I'll just return it, get my money back. I'll say I did not subscribe, whatever. And then it's like when you throw that in there, it just makes it a little different. And I mean, item not described, I guess, would waive it regardless. But I just think that it's 2 different approaches. I don't think either are wrong. It just really comes down to what you want for your model. For me, I don't know. I just have gotten to like the more simple that I have to deal with, the better. And for me, it's just like less little things like that are easier for me. But I can definitely see, like, you sell a lot more hard goods and electronics and things like that. Like if I was selling those type of things, I probably would consider that a lot more. Just because like I think of like the VCRs and the different things that you sell, and that would be very advantageous for you.
That's also a great point on depending on what you sell. For me, when I sell clothing items, if it's not an expensive item, I'm not going to have them ship it back. If they're going to return it, it's instantly a refund. So, I mean, it just depends. And on electronics, because they're more expensive, I want all those items back.
Right. Yeah, I think your portfolio of products dictates it. And that's why I think that Chris's point is very valid and a great tip if you're selling those type of items. Whereas, like, for me, when I think about that, I offer 60-day returns. To me, I prevent it on the front end by providing additional description, more measurements, more whatever. Like, I'm just very overly detailed in the presentation of my items to try and avoid it up front. So, and Chris does that too. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying from the portfolio of products you offer, it's like offering that restocking fee is a big deal for you when you're selling $100 and $200, VCRs and things like that. It's I can definitely understand that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so our last one, we'll switch over to some Q&A after, is list your inventory label. So, and this is if you use an inventory label system, list it in multiple places throughout the listing, because that helps you avoid the mistake of misplacing it, which a lot of my negative feedback has come from having to cancel orders. Well, I can't even say negative. I've had my first one last year, but like a lot of my neutral feedback or like just bad buyer experiences tends to come from having to cancel an order because I misplaced the item. And so I've been moved to I use the custom SKU part of the listing. I have it in the title of my listing, and I have it in the item description of my listing. So I have it in 3 places. And that way, when I'm on my mobile app at my storage unit or wherever I am, I can find it very quickly. It's in multiple places, and I don't worry about ever not locating the item. That just seems to be a really good practice for me as far as avoiding those, and the other thing that can happen, especially with my bulk orders and why it's so critical for me with my LOB and stuff, is I don't want to send the wrong pair of pants. I have so many different sizes of brown khakis. I need to make sure I'm pulling the right SKU when I go to do that, because that's a sure way to get a return if I send them the wrong size, and that will be on me. That's the other reason why I do that.
I actually have I have 5 negative in around 5,000 transactions so far, and all of them are from not being able to find it. So I'm definitely going to be adding the location description in, and that is key, because also if we start scaling and we start having employees and it starts to get more and more complicated, and I've had my listers enter it in wrong. So for example, if it's bin number A75 and item number 12, I've had them put the opposite, bin 12 and 75, and then I'm never going to find the item. It's lost forever. But I can at least go back and look and try to get an idea of where it is, if there's a photo or a double entry somewhere. So I think that even large companies, or actually especially large companies, have 2, 3, they have redundancies built in just so they can find items. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of random thing. And then also communication is key. If you're not able to find an item, not every time I get a negative. Definitely lost more than 5 items.
Yeah, I agree. And I've actually had a couple times where I went to ship an item and I realized there was a flaw I didn't see, and I've had to cancel it. I mean, I've told them, like, look, you don't want to wear this. Like, I don't know how I missed this, but you don't want to wear this. And I've gotten some neutral feedback from that. It's never, and it's so weird. Like, if you ever take the time to relieve feedback, I feel like it would be positive or negative. When someone leaves neutral feedback, I'm so confused by it. I'm like, huh? Like, you took the time to leave feedback, but it's not that I mean, it's better than negative, but that's always an odd thing to me. I'm like, I don't know. It's weird.
I've even had a negative positive feedback where it's like, the item is not good, not as described, but the seller had great communication. So, like, as long as you're talking to the customer, usually they don't want to leave you negative feedback generally.
Yeah. I'm going to give a quick shout out here to Annie for giving a $20 super chat. Really, really appreciate that support. Appreciate you supporting our show. Hopefully this content is bringing some value. So we appreciate the donation there. Thank you.
So I think the first Q&A that we should hit is, what is our return percentage?
Yeah, that's great. So mine is at, last time I checked, I actually should have checked before the show, I was at about 2.4.
Mine is 3.27, but it's 10% in electronics. So,
so electronics are pulling yours way up, huh?
Yeah, so it's like I'm actually building into my business model 3% returns, as in, like, 3% of my customers, I'm going to let them keep the item, and just lose out on the shipping and the cost of goods sold. But I don't think it's going to be 3%. Actually, it depends on my product mix. But in the clothing, it's under 3%. Right.
Yeah, mine's held between 2 and 3% the entire time I've sold on eBay. It really hasn't fluctuated from there. It's been pretty much, I don't know. It doesn't matter how much I sell. It doesn't seem to scale up with it at all, which is good. And honestly, it's probably trended downwards in the last 6 months. And that was what was interesting, because we've talked about, we went to 60-day returns, and I haven't noticed any change since doing that. 0. Down a little bit.
And I have accepted a 180-day return before. A guy asked for a 30% restocking fee, and I took the item back. So, I mean, it just depends. Like, you can work it out with your customer even after the fact. So I think that's I've also received items that didn't get delivered 3-4 months later, which is amazing. So some people don't know.
Yeah. Wade asked way back when, I actually just remembered, at the beginning of the show, he asked, do you think it's good to put in thank you cards from like a Vistaprint or something like that with each of your sales?
I actually think that all of us should be collecting all these email addresses somehow with a thank you card. And thanks for your business. If you have any issues, call me. Or whatever. And if you buy thank you cards, like even on Vistaprint, they're only 2 cents each. or 1 cent each if you buy 500 or more. And that's not very expensive. I do think that's something that I've just been lazy. There's no reason for me not to include a thank you card. It's not that much work.
Yeah, that's true. So I have a thing about that, right? And maybe it's just me personally how I view it, but like if I get a stock standard unpersonalized message from someone, to me it doesn't add much value. Like it doesn't make my buying experience better when a company leaves their standard whatever in there. Because to me it was like, okay, that's a process they have built in. But maybe that's just because I run my own business, so I think about it that way. But when someone takes the time to reach out personally and talk to me, that means a ton, because I'm like, okay, you gave up your time. Now, I don't know about consumers. I don't know consumer behavior enough to know if it makes a difference as much. I know it from like what they'll buy. I don't know it from the thank you side. What do you think about that, Chris?
If my waitress writes thank you and a smiley face on the receipt, her tip like doubles. So it's like really hard to not tip that lady or man twice as much for being like, you're the best customer ever. Have a great weekend. You're the best. Yep. Hope the food was great. It's like, oh man, you just got as much as the meal cost, because that's so much effort and work to put into the transaction. But I don't care about the Applebee's thank you for coming. Like that doesn't do anything. I didn't even notice that until you just pointed that out. But they took the effort to make that, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, I think you see that even like in social media, and this is a whole different topic too. But I mean, just when someone takes a copy paste response to someone versus a genuine like message, it's like it's a lot more impactful and meaningful. So, Mark asked a question. I think I lost.
There's been also a bunch of people messaging me saying that when they added a mint, it reduced their returns. And it was worth it. I don't think it could possibly be worth it, but maybe. What if the mint melted and ruined their clothing? I don't know. I don't know.
That word, I don't know. I think there's some liability when you start adding food products in, but that's just my thought on that. That's where my head goes.
Yeah.
I see a question of, how about a general statement? Each listing, please see pictures to determine color for yourself, as color shades can be subjective. Do you do anything like that? You like that?
I mean, I like the see pictures for more condition, for more details on condition. But like the part that's hard for me to answer is, what's the general condition of the item? When I get that question, I'm just like gently used, which doesn't answer the question. I don't know how to accurately, I've seen a very good seller put worn about 7 times, and I'm like, how do you know that? Like, what does that even mean? But that's just like a thing that I've seen, and I don't know how to even quantify that. Worn 7 times by who?
Yeah.
How rough are they when they, where did they go?
Yeah, I all those vague, like only worn a few times. I'm just like I don't know. It's so subjective and doesn't mean much to me. I'm like, I want to see the pictures. Let me see the wear on it. Like that's pretty much it.
How about a rating system out of 10?
Yeah, I like rating systems. I mean, I think they should be simpler than 10. I think 10 is way too specific, but that's just. I think that again, like color, I view it as I want to keep them in vague buckets. Not vague, but I want to keep them in wide buckets, right? Because condition again is subjective. Like I feel like there are some items when I say fair condition, like I would wear it still, but someone else might not. And that's why I don't know. It's just the condition is so hard. It's so tough.
One thing I do think that would help in the thank you card is a coupon. I think that would work. 10% off in something else in our store.
That's a whole different mindset. I mean, that's trying to give someone that. I think that's a great idea. I mean, I actually haven't heard of anyone doing that, and I've thought about it, but I haven't executed on it because I mean, I've never thought I had many repeat buyers, I guess. But if you thought you could encourage repeat buyers, then that might be a genius idea.
Yeah, I would love to do a coupon. I'm gonna actually execute that, throw one in, and see what happens, because it's getting them to come back to you is easier, right? And you have their email. I I kind of don't think that's obtrusive. Like, I always wonder, is it sort of not sleazy, but like you have their email from PayPal, but it's not like they gave you their email.
Right.
So they just have it through the PayPal. If you send them a thank you so much for buying something from me, here's a 10% off coupon. That they respond, that's kind of like you have their email address now. They are like legitimately not, they want to hear from you, kind of. I don't know.
Yeah, true. And I'm not even sure the policies of that. Like, I'm not sure I'm just not sure any of that. I mean, it can't hurt to reach out and thank a buyer. Can't hurt to be sending that. So.
And if you sell the same stuff, there's no reason to not come back to your store.
True. Very true. Well, you're going to have to test it and report back and let us know.
Okay, we'll test it.
I saw a question earlier from Mark asking if there's any particular reason why you flat lay and I use a mannequin. The basic question.
It's just, I think it's personal preference.
Yeah.
I am actually going to do both. So I'm actually, since I want to talk about eBay online, I'm going to do 3. I'm going to do a hanging mannequin, the actual mannequin, and flat lay, because but I've seen stores that are successful at all 3 models. And one more big point, the big stores use all 3 models.
Right, because they have multiple people staging and doing stuff.
So
I feel like I only pick mine based on efficiency. So like, that's the first thing I think about. Now, quality is important to me. I won't ever sacrifice quality. But then after I've established my quality point I'm comfortable with, I just pick based on efficiency. So for me, shirts and blazers and everything are so much quicker on mannequins for me. My mannequin spins like 360 degrees without any resistance. Like, I can snap pictures so fast on it. For jeans and everything, I used to hang them, and now I've shifted to flat laying them because it's way faster for me. So like, I flat lay all my pants. So I've really have gone to efficiency because I'm trying to crank out, 350 to 450 items a month part-time. So it's like, whatever is going to save me a few seconds here and there, that's the model I'm taking, as long as the quality is acceptable.
Scott makes an interesting point that, Sam, Business 101 is it's cheaper to maintain a customer than gain a new one. And that is Business 101. Like, people ask me, are you using the eBay promotions coupon to buy 2 to get 10% off? Because the add-on is how traditional businesses, would you like fries with that, is how they made their millions. Right. And if we're not asking that, I mean, I don't have that promotion going. I need to set that up.
Yeah. So I heard this, and this is not clothing or retail related, but it was the coolest illustration I've ever heard of retaining and growing your customer base. And it was the guy who does like the bar rescue shows was on one of Gary Vee's episodes. Not sure if you saw that, Chris, but he did an illustration of how he handles growing repeat customers. And basically it was, when you connect with a customer for the first time and they're the first time in your store, they would put a red napkin at the table so that the general manager would walk over before the meal was over and be like, hey, how was the food? Was it great? Blah, blah, you stuffed. They'd be like, yeah. All right, well, you're stuffed. No problem. Why don't you come back? Here's free dessert for you. Why don't you come back and try whatever? Or why don't you try a barbecue? I think he said. So they'd come back, try the barbecue. The next time they come back with that, they'd bring the coupon back. And when they brought that coupon back, then they put a blue napkin down. And so now they know that it's the second time they're there. So they have the same thing. And then they do, kind of the spiel about, we'll come back and have our cheesecake for free. So now they got them in there 3 different times. They're able to notate each time they're there and have their business. And I know it's not the same at all as what we're talking about as far as like food versus retail, but it's the same concept of developing that customer base. I'm just not sure that I'm bought into the selling unique one-offs on eBay from like what we do right now, Chris, like specifically. I just don't know how valid that is. Like, I don't know how
that's true.
The time invested will equate to that. And I could be way off, and maybe there's a business who does it really well. I just have not encountered anyone who says they have tons of repeat buyers. So
I just have one more generic thought on customer service, which I wanted to share with you, which is unbelievable to me. Yesterday, I went to a yoga class, and it's pay what you want. And here we also have stores like that. Like, there's no prices. You just pay what you think it's worth. And so it's a yoga class. Yesterday I went to the class. There's 200 people in it. And it's pay what you want. Recommended $10 per class. But whatever you want to pay is whatever you want to pay. And so there's 200 people there. So in theory, they could make $2,000 a class, which is outrageous. That's an insane amount of money for a yoga class. So I went to the class. It was excellent. Afterwards, the instructor holds a shoebox at the front of the door. She's the one holding it. And so, as you're leaving, you can either pay or not pay. And I asked her what the average amount is, and she said five. What people give is half the recommended amount. So for 200 people, we can expect $1,000, even though we ask for two. And I'm like, that's amazing. And she's like, we made way more money than charging $10 per class or $5 per class. The pay what you want model makes us a ton of money. And so I can't believe that exists. And even Panera Bread has stores called Panera Cares, where you just pay what you want. And obviously eBay can't be pay what you want, but that would be interesting to see what would happen if that became the model.
Yeah, definitely probably not an applicable model to eBay, because the human element is what drives that, right?
That's right, the human element.
The human element is what drives that, right? You have a nice connection with the person who gave you the service. It's just like the illustration you gave with the server, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that tip could have been anywhere from $1 to $40. But that smiley face and have a great day, you're the best customer got real close to the 40 mark, right? Like, yeah, I don't know.
And if they just left the shoebox by the door, there's no way everyone would pay.
Yeah, true.
So that's amazing for customer service.
Absolutely. I see Dan asking, how do you find your items after they are sold? Is the item location with item number, or is the inventory organized by item number? Is the item location with the item number? So I think he's asking, how do we label where the inventory is stored, and then connect that to where the inventory tag is in our listing?
There was also a question on do we print packing slips, which is sort of related.
I do not do packing slips. Do you?
I don't. And now, since I print the item location on the label, I don't even have to print a package list. So no package list and no packing slip. And on the package, it'll say the amount. And that's actually the biggest time saver I've ever done in my business. So I just print it. It says where it is. I just walk to where it is and put the label on it. I mean, that's like the best time savings ever for me.
See, now I can't do that because I don't pre-pack my items totally. So that's where we differ a little bit. I just pre-pack them in a poly bag and I put the inventory number right here. And in my listing, I type this inventory number. So like when it sells, I'm like, okay, LLM 162, I know to go to bin LLM that has range of whatever numbers encompassing 162. And I know it's in there. So I think that answers the question.
Is LM 162 the bin number?
So LLM is the name of the bin. So I have multiple bins that are LLM, and then they have ranges of numbers on them. So I'm looking for a bin with a range of numbers that has 162 in it. And the reason I do that is so that I can consolidate as those bins get half empty, whatever. It goes from bin, let's just say it's LLM 100 to 200. And so it has any item that's in there. I can also consolidate LLM 200 to 300 into one big bin 100 to 300 once it gets half and half. So I am shifting away from that. That's what I do now currently. But what I want to get to is replenishing my inventory tags. And the only reason is for the same reason you are, Chris, is like I need to start building the infrastructure that's scalable so that I can replace them with scannable inventory tags if possible. So that's just kind of the other thing I'm trying to figure out.
We print packing slips for all sales and handwrite. Man, that is such an amazing experience. Part of me wants to do that, and the other part of me is like, how do you do that? That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great. My hat's off to you for doing it. I just, at the volume I'm doing right now, I just can't do it. I mean, if I had help, maybe.
I'm gonna write a smile. If I draw a smiley face and a thank you on the shipping label, is that gonna prevent it from going through USPS? Are they gonna be annoyed with that?
I have no idea.
Because I could write thank you on the shipping label. I never receive packages with that. That would be a not even 1 star, half a star better experience.
Yeah, I mean, if it gives a lift and doesn't take that much time, I think that's great. Dan, just to answer your question directly, he asked if that LLM number is in my item title or SKU. It's in both. I make sure it's in both and in my item description.
Also, just a quick thought, Luke, on the BHFO, who I was trying to copy, they put their item number as the second word. And the reason why they do that is because you can select the first 30 characters of your title to be on the shipping label. So it'll say LL Bean 32 item location. So then that way they can double check, like it's printed on the title, but what it is plus where it is. And I think that's a great way to do it. And it's like they gave up a key potential keyword for that simplicity. And it's just interesting that they value that convenience over the search ranking.
Well, makes sense. I mean, for the volume they're doing, it makes sense. They're doing an enormous amount of volume. Having their employees be able to find those items quickly is huge.
Tape has eBay brand. Yeah. How do you feel about the eBay tape?
It's pretty lightweight and flimsy, but it's free.
That's
We're being really honest.
That's perfectly, yeah.
Like it's very stretchy and it's not as sturdy as like if you were like doing really heavy boxes like rigid cardboard, it's not the tape you want. But for shoe boxes and medium-sized boxes, I think it's perfectly acceptable. And it's way cheaper than buying it. Getting your little coupon.
Michelle always writes "thank you" on the bottom of the shipping label. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's. I
think that's an easy one you could add in.
That's an easy one.
Especially if you're not doing hundreds and hundreds of packages a month. That's something where if you want to add a little bit of customer service, you could do without really hindering your productivity that much.
I might add that as my double check because right now I want to double check each item before I send it, and I might write the thank you during the double check part. So even at a large volume, it would be a very, very cool thing. So there's a question on what our sell-through rates are this month. You want to address that?
So let's address that right after. Let's just address that. Go ahead.
My sell-through rate on my small store is like 1.5%. So it has 500 listings in it, and I'm selling 7. And my big store has 200 items in it. I'm sorry, 2,000 items in it, and I only sell 0.5%. So it's actually 4 times bigger, but only slightly more sales. So the sell-through rate's a lot lower. And I think, just real quick, Scott, I want to address this. In my big store, I listed 4 different ways, and in my small store, I only listed 1 way. So I think that variance is making my sell-through rate all over the map. So like it'll be interesting as my big store. I can't really give you a good answer because I did so many different methods. It's hard to tell. But in my small store, it's pretty consistent.
Makes sense. So mine, I'm just looking right now. So I've got almost 1,900 listings. I got like 1,875. I've sold 239 items. Now, the problem with calculating my sell-through now I'm finding is that I have multi-quantity. So I have 1,875 unique listings, which is how I used to calculate it. But I really have about 3,100 items. So when you say sell-through, like that's where I'm confused about. Does the calculation change because you only have X amount of listings visible to people? And is the sell-through, you know what I'm saying? Like, so if I did let's just do it 2 ways.
No,
so
I think sell-through rate's based on total items.
Total quantity, right? So how you define it. So 239 divided by 3,100 is less than 1% this month. Right? Did I do that right? Yeah. On a daily basis, it's probably like 0.007. So about 0.7%, well, 0.8%. I think that's low. But I also think that I price at the higher end of the market, so I expect it to be low.
So Scott bases it on total unique items because, as an example, like there's somebody in my Facebook group that has only 100 listings and sells 600 items a month. So like, how do you can't calculate it on unique items because it's above 100%.
Right, because if I do unique items, it's 12.7%. Oh, sorry, I stated that wrong. Yeah, but if I do unique items, it's 12.7% for the month. And if I do total quantity, it's 7.7%. Sorry, so that makes more sense. And if I do 239 divided by 30 days we've had so far, 8 divided by 3,100. So I'm at like almost 0.3 of a percentage point a day. So under 0.5% per day, which is, I mean, low, right? Like when you think about it, when I say it out loud, I'm like, dang, that's low. But I'm at almost $5,400 in sales this month. So it's like, and the net margin is above 50% right now. So
amazing.
I feel like, yeah, it stinks, but once it's up, I don't know, the list it and forget it thing is just kind of nice. So it's, I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting looking at the different, and you know, there's people who create a brand with just one product.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so that's an you know, can imagine that's literally all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. Well, you can view your business for so many lenses. We talk about all the time, right? It's like profitability at the end of the day is the ultimate measuring stick.
Yep.
So yeah, it's interesting. The other question there that was, I saw
a lot of great questions, tonight, guys. Thank you.
I can't find it.
Oh, that's a good question. Do you use good till canceled?
I use good till cancel on everything.
I just switched to good till cancel, guys. I was 30-day, and I used to not relist. I used to sell similar and then delete them. I don't do that anymore because eBay told me to go in and revise listings weekly instead of using 30-day sell similar. Like, you get a new item number, but you don't relist a bad listing. Just adjust your listings. So yeah, that made sense to me. So I moved away from 30-day.
Yeah, I haven't noticed any drop with good till cancel other than the normal summer slowdown. I've been good till cancel for almost 3 months now. I think 2.5, 3. It's saved me a lot of time. I adjust my prices on a monthly basis. I just roll through and make sure if I need to adjust anything, I can. If I think I have any bad buys or anything like that, so it hasn't affected me. I just found the comment I wanted to scroll back to here. We only had a couple minutes, but Amazon seller said that they send double-sided thank you cards with all their eBay orders. They do it through Vistaprint, and they offer a discount code for the next order. And they said they've had decent redemption on discount code. So that's interesting.
I forgot about the redemption code. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
I think we need to do a separate show on that, or a tutorial.
I think we need to do that.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm leaving a lot of money. When I hear someone say that, I feel like I'm leaving so much money on the table.
I also feel like since I'm not utilizing my audience when people tell me that watch me on YouTube or us on YouTube and they buy something from me, I don't know that.
Right.
I don't know that they bought something from me, and I have no way to reward them. But if I was like, hey, if you watch my channel and want to buy something, here's a redemption code. You get a deal, and thank you. And also I can use that for my customers. Why not? That's a fantastic way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Harrison, I see you asking about if we have any videos on doing auction lists or auction using thrift store items. I think what he's referring to using a couple of other chat earlier today. He does a lot of drop shipping. He hasn't done like unique SKU stuff. Both Chris and I have tutorial videos on how to list items. I have one for suits, jeans, and shirts and ties. So feel free to check out the tutorial section on my channel. Check out the stuff on Chris's channel. Between the two of us, we list a lot of different items, and it'll show you how to do it from start to finish.
Also, Harrison, one store to follow is Old Cotton Com. I'll put it in the chat. But basically, there's a guy that sells 500 to 1,000 items a week, auction only. So he sells almost the exact same stuff as Luke and I, but does not do a single fixed price listing. Totally different model. So you can take a look and look. I mean, there's different. And then, of course, there's no question he's going to get less per item. But then he also has 100% sell-through, so it is totally different concept.
Yeah, Chris. I think we owe a redemption coupon, a redemption code show in the future. because I want to learn
Yeah.
more about it. I need time to do my own research on it, but I think that's in the future.
I didn't realize you could do that. I did not understand how a coupon works, but that is how it works.
This is why I love these shows. Like, I mean, me and Chris know a lot about a little. Is how I like to say it, right? We know very deeply about a small area, but there are so many other areas that everyone else in there watching knows about. And being able to share this information is huge. Like, I mean, I just learned something that honestly I've probably been leaving money on the table for a long time not doing it. So pretty excited to explore that now. Any want to take a last question, or where are you at?
I think we're good because the last question, there's been a few questions on how do you get redemption codes. So your guess is as good as ours for now. We need to go in and figure it out.
Yeah, we need to apply and figure it out. So.
And guys, if you have any questions or you want a specific topic, email or comment, because we're pretty good about answering all of our questions and comments. We'll get back to you. And most of our content comes from questions. So let us know if you want a specific thing answered.
Yeah, we try to be really good about answering the comments in the videos. And I know that both of us are pretty good on Instagram. I realized that I was telling people to DM me on Instagram, and I didn't see all the requests I had to approve. So I erased that queue of people and replied to everyone this last week. I do apologize for the delay. I'm on top of that now, so feel free to reach out on Instagram, Endless Entrepreneurs.
And also, real quick, we don't shout you guys out just because of time. We're trying to get as much content as we can in. That's why there's not a lot of shouts, but we love all of you. So
yeah,
don't worry, we know you're there.
We have 118 watching live, guys. I mean, we really appreciate you guys tuning in and appreciate you guys sharing backwards to us. So if you guys don't mind, hit that like button on the way out. Let us know we did a good job with the show. We're excited to bring you another one next week, and we will be over on 10K on the Bay, Chris's channel next week. We alternate each week, and we'll post what time that is as we get closer. It fluctuates based on schedule. So appreciate everyone. Have an awesome night. Any last thoughts, Chris?
That's it. Make sure you hit that like button for Luke. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care, guys. Have an awesome night.